What's up, everybody? Welcome to week 5. Man, this year's already flying by. I can't believe we're already at week 5. It seems like uh, it's starting to get a little bit interesting with our overall standing, some of our power ranking shifts. Pretty fun week last week, especially for me. Back in it, and hopefully, it'll make some noise this year. So, I'm going to jump right into week 5. So these will be the commissioner picks of the week. Went 2-2 last week. Would have been 3-1, but I took that upset win, so happy with that 2-2 record last week. Like Commissioner Tim mentioned, 9-7 overall, looking pretty good there. So jumping right into week 5, I'm kind of looking at some blowouts here. This might be the week of the blowout. I know we've had a lot of parity thus far in these matchups. Seems like last week, I mean, 3 out of the 4 were blowouts decided before the Monday night games and even before the Sunday night games. So I'm kind of expecting more of the same with these. I always try and look for upsets. I don't just go off of predictions, although like it's hard to overlook that sometimes. But we'll see if I can come up with any upsets this week. So first matchup I want to look at is going to be Chota with the 2-2 record, ranked 6th overall in Commissioner Tim's power rankings, versus Brady's Third Dynasty. Great name, love it. As a Bills fan, this one hurts a little bit, but it's a great name, so I'm happy with that. So Brady's Third Dynasty sitting at 3-1, the top ranked team in our power rankings. To this point, I would agree 100% with these rankings. Looking at this matchup, I think Chota's lack of depth is kind of a glaring issue in this one for me. Um, I would consider this matchup kind of the best chance for an upset, but it's really hard to overcome the advantage at flex that Ryan has. Just that depth when you start looking down the lineup and all of Ryan's guys are right around 12 to 15 points, and Chota's got some guys in there with 7 or 8 projected points. It gets hard at that point. You really have to hope for somebody to just go off. And for me, that's a little bit difficult to envision, especially in this matchup when Ryan's team is so strong. Questions for me: does Dalvin play? And if he does play, are we going to see a repeat of last game where he basically sat out the second half, or are we going to see more of that Dalvin production? Hopefully, him sitting out that game, most of that game. He'll come into this one fresh, but it's scary that they were in a tight game. What was it? I think 14-7, and Dalvin's on the sideline. So I think it's still a pretty risky play this week to throw Dalvin out there. It's not like you're going to bench him, but you're not going to feel great going into it. I have him in another league. It's a tough. I mean, there's obviously nothing on your bench that's looking nearly as good as his upside, but just last week kind of was a little snake bite for what might be to come here. Saquon Barkley, I think he's back. I'm a big fan of Saquon's. The Giants have slowly built a team around him, and I think we're starting to finally see that pay off. With his injury, coming back from his injury, I think he's starting to get to that pre-injury Saquon. And I think he's consistently going to be right around the top 5 running back performances for the rest of the year. I think Saquon's going to be good, just like everyone was thinking when he came out of college. So I think that for him, it's going to be the consistency. He had a really good game last week, and I think he's going to back it up again. Matchup within the matchup for this one, I might be a little biased here, but Stephon Diggs versus Tyreek Hill going up against each other in real life and in fantasy. I love these little matchups. Looking at this matchup though, Hill is he's in a league of his own. The guy's an animal. This year maybe kind of Cooper Cup touching that, although he fell back to earth last week. But Hill has consistently just been unstoppable. But looking at this matchup, I mean, Bills D is tough. They're starting to get to the quarterback. They've always had a good secondary. It'll be interesting. And historic matchups between these two teams. Kansas City has won most of them, but the Bills do a pretty good job of shutting down the top receiving option, whether that's Kelsey or Hill. They usually get beat by either the running game or by a third receiving option. So that'll be fun to watch. On the reverse side, Kansas City defense has been absolutely terrible this year. I think Diggs is going to break out in a big way this week. I do think he's going to outscore Tyreek Hill this week. I think Bills across the board are going to have a good week on offense. And yeah, I expect Diggs this to kind of be his coming out party. He got it going a little bit more last week, but I think we're going to see him get in the end zone and have one of those big performances that we expected coming into this year. Looking at the commish pick of the week, like I said, I looked at calling this as an upset, but I just couldn't get myself to do it due to that lack of depth. I think the deeper lineup's going to really be a critical advantage for Ryan. I think this one has a chance at being a close matchup, though. I'm hoping this is a close matchup, but I'm going to go ahead and pick Brady's third dynasty for the commish pick on this matchup. All right, next matchup is Cup to Canada, sitting at 2-2, second ranked team under Commissioner Tim's power rankings versus Ben, 3-1, and the fourth ranked team. Ben's not getting much love, despite that record. I think with Ben, we kind of mentioned this prior to the season. It's just some depth issues. I think that's kind of glaring once someone like McCaffrey goes down. Obviously, this team is built around McCaffrey. So anytime he's going to be out of the lineup, I think we have to expect that it's not going to go great for this team. It sounds like there's a chance he might be coming back this week. So hopefully for Ben, we see him on the field. But like I mentioned in previous predictions on the last one I just went over, I see this as a down week overall for Kansas City players. Might be wishful thinking there, but I think Mahomes comes in under his 24.61 point prediction. I think he comes in under 20, which for him is an extremely down week. I think the Bills are going to get at him. Watch for guys like Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa. Like they're gonna sack him. They're gonna get to him, and I think it could be an interesting matchup for these two teams. And I think that's going to keep Mahomes scrambling and having kind of an issue when his receivers are hopefully covered. I also think, not to pick on Eves, but I also think this is the week the Heineke show kind of comes crashing back to earth. Taylor Heineke's been playing out of his mind. All credit to him. I think he's a good player, but just something doesn't pass the smell test for me. I don't know. He hasn't done it to date. There's a reason why he wasn't the starter at a camp. I think he's playing out of his mind. NFL is a very hard, league to play in. I think defenses are gonna figure him out. There's a reason why, he didn't come right out of college or whatever, even in the last few years playing this well. So we'll see, for the Washington football team. I mean, I think, obviously him playing well helps them, and I think that's good for the league, but I think it's going to come crashing down here. All right, looking at the other side here, looking at Ben's matchup. So I definitely missed on my prediction for Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson last week. Not afraid to admit it. Not good performances on offense at all for Minnesota. Was this due to Dalvin being injured and defenses being able to just focus pretty much solely on the passing game? Maybe. Cleveland's defense is a juggernaut. Best defense in the league thus far, I would say. So it could just be the Cleveland factor. I think they're going to turn it around this. I mean, they're obviously going to turn it around this week. They're going up against the Lions. So this isn't really going out on a limb here, but I'm going to double down. This will be the week that Cousins and Justin Jefferson go off. I'll hold the same thing. I think Justin Jefferson, 10 catches, over 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think he's gonna really go off. Another one, this is a tough matchup. I think two teams kind of going in different directions here, so it's hard to pick for me. But I think Cup to Canada is going to be carried this week by his Packers. Aaron Rodgers is turning it on. I know you don't have Aaron Rodgers, but as Aaron Rodgers goes, that whole offense goes. Aaron Jones looking good, getting in the end zone finally, just getting those goal line touches and taking advantage of them. Obviously, Devontae. again, another one in those top tier wide receivers that just gets theirs every week. So I think they're going to have big weeks. So my prediction is going to be Cup to Canada. Eves is on the fast track to the top right now. This team's scary. I mean, just looking out at future matchups and projections and everything, consistently at or over 165. And that's pretty crazy. And when looking at this team too, I don't see a whole lot of boom or bust players. I see a lot of consistency. So it's going to be a tough one to beat. I do think Cooper Cup could make this one look closer to after tonight's game. I think he'll probably bounce back in a pretty strong way against that Seattle defense. But Eves, I would predict, would win this matchup with ease. Get that big third win. All right, next matchup is going to be Half Chubb sitting at 1-3, ranked 7th, versus the Washington Fantasy Football Team, ranked 2-2, or sitting at 2-2, ranked 3rd. Half Chubb would love to pull the upset this week. I don't necessarily think it's a must win at this point, but I'm sure John would feel a lot better about his chances for the playoffs if he was at 2-3 rather than 1-4. When there's only 4 teams getting into playoffs and we very clearly have a top 3, if someone like me, if I win and then John's sitting at 1-4 to kind of have that 2-game advantage with only 10 to go, could put a little bit of a stress on those chances. So I know John's probably sitting and waiting to see what direction he wants to take his team, whether he's just jumping 100% in and going for it. It's probably going to rest on whether or not he can upset Adam this week. Adam's looking to put last week's upset loss behind him and continue his roll to the playoffs. This is obviously a very good team. Some, weird outcome with Mike Williams that we probably won't see again. But, just business as usual, I think, this week. Looking at these matchups, the Washington Fantasy Football Team holds the advantage, in my opinion, at quarterback and running back. This advantage is slight, in my opinion. And really the X factor, at least for the quarterbacks, which way this advantage goes, I think it's Derek Carr. Is Chicago going to be able to put enough pressure on him to make him uncomfortable? Joey Bosa said it best. And I mean, I think it's true. When Derek Carr gets pressure in his face, when he gets hit a few times, he crumbles. I think he's a good player. I think he's a good dude, but I think he doesn't like pressure in his face. And I mean, look at his brother, David Carr, had the same thing, sacked a million times his rookie year, and he was never the same. There's just something about him. You get to him a few times and he starts to anticipate hits, and you see it in highlights. He starts to go down before he's hit and things like that. Not to say he won't step up and, take a hit to complete a throw, but if you start getting to him, you start getting knockdowns, I think it gets in his head. So, Chicago is one of those defenses that can get to the quarterback. Akeem, Akers, obviously, Khalil Mack. They can make you uncomfortable. And they have to. So it'll be interesting. I think another piece of this, is how well is Justin Fields able to do? Is he able to keep the defense off the field? Keep Derek Carr off the field? So this will be a fun one. Derek Carr obviously has had a good year to date. Last week, first 2 quarters looked awful. But at the second half, he completely salvaged that performance. So it'll be fun to watch. The rest of this matchup is pretty even in my mind. I think Debo outperforms his projection this week and gives John the edge. Well, here we go. And I wrote down in the flex spot, but news just came out that Calvin Ridley is out for this game. So actually, I'm changing up quite a bit of this on the fly. So Debo, it looks like, has moved into John's wide receiver spot. And then I don't recall the change John put to his flex spot. But anyways, losing Calvin Ridley is big, even though he's had kind of an up and down year. So anyways, I do think Debo is going to have a great performance again this week. He's kind of going out of his mind. I fall victim to this sometimes where I'm always late to the party. Like, I like a player, but don't say anything. And then they go off and then I jump on the bandwagon and the next week's kind of pedestrian. So we'll see here. But I do think Debo is good. Trey Lance adds a new wrinkle to this offense. If he's the one playing, if it's Jimmy, obviously we know he likes Debo too. So um, thinking there's going to be some consistency there. All right. Well, my original pick, well, I'll just go through it here. I am changing this though. Everything logical tells me to go with Adam in this matchup, but my gut keeps saying pick John. I was going to pick back to back upsets for Adam. However, losing Calvin Ridley, I don't like it. So I am going to pick Adam to take the win this week. Um, Unfortunately, I think, for John, that puts him at 1-4. I think it'll be a pretty stressful week 6 coming. But John has enough ammo on his team to make a move if he wants to, or start accumulating assets for the future. So I had written half Chubb gets the win, maybe allowing him to go back to full Chubb, but we're gonna stick with half Chubb for another week. Adam gets the win in this matchup. Sorry if that was confusing. All right, our final matchup, the commissioner matchup, was looking like a kind of toilet bowl preview here up until late last night. So Bills Mafia 2-2, 5th ranked team versus Trust the Process 1-3, 8th ranked team. Obviously, Bills Mafia coming off a win last week was, this team has been so inconsistent. It's hard to say. Every other day, I feel like, oh, it's the playoff team. Oh, it's the worst team in the league. So on the heels of a big trade, getting Austin Eckler, now having this matchup, now it does appear to be two teams going in different directions. I think it's kind of clear at this point, off of my stolen win over Adam, I'm going for it. And I think getting Eckler hopefully puts me into that, hopefully into that top 4 to make the playoffs, but maybe even a tier higher. We'll see. I think I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but A.J. Brown's going to be key. If he's a top 10 wide receiver, I think Bills Mafia has a chance. If he's not, that's going to be a glaring hole. As far as Trust the Process, his current team's really going to ride or die on the backs of 3 people: Kyler Murray, CeeDee Lamb, and Josh Taylor. I think, if all these guys go off in the same week, he could win. I wrote Josh Taylor, Jonathan Taylor. Sorry. If all these guys go off in the same week, he could win a matchup just on the backs of these 3. There's obviously more talent on this lineup, but I think these 3 are the key. He's going to need them to kind of have consistently strong weeks to really jump those 25 to 30 points that he's going to need to win a matchup. Looking at Bills Mafia, the huge advantage is at quarterback. This is kind of a common thread throughout the season. I know we've had some quarterbacks that have consistently played better. But as far as the upside, I think Josh Allen obviously has a high ceiling. Dak Prescott has a high ceiling, and they're starting to show it a little bit. I've mentioned this throughout this video today. I think all Bills are going to have a big week, but I think Josh Allen is going to especially have a good week. I think he'll get in on with his legs a few times and find Diggs a few times. So should be a fun one to watch there. I mentioned this already, but is A.J. Brown going to play this week? Is he going to be effective? This week, Julio Jones, it sounds like, is trending towards being out of this game. So that leaves a huge target share for A.J. Brown without Julio playing. And like I said, AJ is the key to long-term success for this team. He's got to get it right. Looking at Tim's team, the rich got richer in terms of future assets. Tim kind of fleeced me in future assets, but he held the line, and I wanted to go for it. So Tim's building a team that's going to be scary good for years to come in the not-too-distant future. Obviously it's not this year. Whether it's next year will kind of depend, I think, on some draft picks coming to fruition quickly. Some of his young quarterbacks kind of figuring it out in year 2. But looking at year 3, this team is right. This team is at the top. Every projection I look at, this team is pretty stacked. So will be fun to watch to see how Tim uses those assets. I know complacency is not Tim's forte. So it'll be interesting. Every week it seems like this team is built differently. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'm going with Bills Mafia this week. Tim getting his three guys to perform well together. I don't think it's going to be this week. And if it is, I don't think it'd be enough. So I'm going to give myself the win. So just going back through that, I know some of these were kind of confusing. My winners for this week are Brady's third dynasty, Cup to Canada. We're going with Washington Fantasy Football Team and Bills Mafia. All right, future focus. Sticking with quarterbacks, I'm going to take a look at Spencer Rattler, quarterback from Oklahoma. 6'1", 205 pounds. He's a redshirt sophomore. So just looking into what I'll call the good. He has great arm strength. He's able to push the ball downfield with ease. He can really make all the throws. He's got good zip on the ball. He can get to his receivers all over the field. There's definitely no limitations with that. He demonstrates an ability to throw across his body seemingly effortlessly. This is tough for a lot of quarterbacks, especially young ones. A lot of guys have to develop this skill. So being able to get out of the pocket and still have the entire field at your disposal is obviously an asset. Think Josh Allen, think Patrick Mahomes. Those guys can make every throw no matter where they are in the backfield. Rattler is also very impressive throwing on the run. He's a pro-style quarterback with good athletic ability. However, don't expect him to put up any sort of Lamar like rushing numbers or anything like that. He can escape the pocket and make plays with his legs when needed. Again, think like a Mahomes. I don't think Rattler's anywhere near Patrick Mahomes, but thinking style of quarterback, this is kind of where he's at. And then he rarely takes unnecessary sacks. He is very good about throwing the ball away, checking down to other open receivers to gain a few yards, scrambling, getting out of bounds. Not to say he's not physical, though. He's a tough kid. He takes hits. He steps into throws, takes hits. I mean, when we looked at Sam Howell last week, who takes a lot of sacks and kind of has some difficulty with determining how to get rid of the ball or locking in on certain receivers. Rattler doesn't seem to have that to the same degree. All right, just a few areas he needs improvement. He'll occasionally flee a clean pocket, which really just forces him to make a more difficult throw than required. He does this pretty frequently, and it's oftentimes annoying. And as a former O lineman, it would piss me off beyond belief. I've had these quarterbacks in the past where you give them a good clean pocket, and for whatever reason they feel like they need to leave it, and it doesn't help anybody. So, anyways, this was a criticism Zach Wilson had coming out of BYU, so maybe some similarities there, just as far as overall skill set and some of the things they need to work on. We've seen this with the Jets and Zach Wilson, although they don't have a good offensive line, so it's hard to say whose fault that is. But Zach Wilson was doing this at BYU as well. Rattler does have some difficulty being able to read the game. He can laser in on specific targets and often misses receivers that are already open just because he's been focused in so much on his first target. And this leads to interceptions quite often as well, forcing balls into unopened targets. And then finally, I just wrote fumbling. He does seem to fumble a little bit more than what I think is probably acceptable for a guy with his talent. So Spencer Rattler, probably one of the top quarterbacks off the board. Up and down season so far at Oklahoma. He's been more of a game manager, I would say, but good completion numbers. I think just the yardage is kind of surprising people. It's not fully there. Touchdowns have been a little sporadic, but showing a little bit more athleticism this year. So we'll probably need to pick it up in order to be one of those, high first round picks, but he also seems like one of those guys that even if he's projected, mid low first, that, with combine and everything, pro days, I think he's going to be a fast riser a la Zach Wilson. So that's that. So that's it for this week for the Commish picks. I hope everyone has a good rest of their week, and best of luck to all your teams. We'll talk to you guys next week.